The machines beeped in rhythm with his heartbeat. Slow, steady, mechanical. 3 months of silence. 3 months of doctors shaking their heads. Nurses whispering prayers they didn't believe in. Family members counting money instead of days. But at 3:14 a.m. on a Tuesday, Kalen Drayton's eyes opened. The room froze. Dr. Ramsey dropped his clipboard. 2 nurses gasped. The attending physician stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of instruments that clattered across the tile floor like scattered bones. Kalen's lips moved. Dry. Cracked. Barely audible. Everyone leaned in. His brother, Mason, stepped forward, hand already reaching for Kalen's shoulder, mouth opening to claim this moment, this miracle, this return of power. But the word that came out wasn't Mason. It wasn't sun. It wasn't even water. Ilera. The room went silent. Dr. Ramsey blinked. Who? Mason's jaw tightened. His hand pulled back as if burned. He's confused. Disoriented. That's normal after a coma. But Kalen's eyes weren't confused. They searched the room, left, right, scanning faces he recognized and faces he didn't. His breathing quickened. The heart monitor spiked. Where is she? His voice came out stronger now. Rough but deliberate. Ilera. The nurse. Where is she? No one answered. Because no one knew who he was talking about. Except Mason. And the look on Mason's face. The way his perfectly pressed suit suddenly seemed too tight. The way his polished shoes shifted backward toward the door told everyone in that room that Kalen Drayton, billionaire, single father, king of the Drayton Empire, had just woken up asking for someone who shouldn't have mattered at all. If you believe some people are destined to meet, even when the world tries to keep them apart, hit that like button right now. This story will change how you see kindness forever. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Mason cleared his throat. Smooth as tie. Took control of the room the way he'd taken control of everything else in Kalen's absence. Brother, you've been unconscious for 3 months. You need rest. We can talk about staff later. Staff. Kalen's hand gripped the bed rail. His knuckles went white. She wasn't staff. She was... He stopped, struggled for words. His mind felt like broken glass. Sharp pieces of memory cutting through fog. A voice. Soft. Reading to him. Praying over him. Telling him things no one else would say. Even giants need grace, Mr. Drayton. He'd heard that. He was sure of it. Not in a dream. Not in some morphine-induced hallucination. He'd heard it while trapped inside his own body, while everyone else talked around him like he was already dead. But she had talked to him. Find her, Kalen said. His voice left no room for negotiation. Tonight, Dr. Ramsey fumbled with his tablet. Sir, we don't have anyone named Ilera on staff right now. If you could give us more details. She was here. Kalen's breathing grew ragged. The monitors beeped faster. Every night. I heard her. I felt her hands. She read to me. From a Bible. My wife's Bible. Mason stepped between Kalen and the doctor. His smile was practiced. Professional. Cold. Kalen, you're not well. You've been through trauma. The mind creates things to cope. It's perfectly normal. But Kalen wasn't listening. His eyes had landed on the nightstand, on the small drawer beside his bed. Open it, he said. No one moved. Open the drawer. Now, a young nurse, one who'd been standing in the corner, silent and terrified, stepped forward. Her hand shook as she pulled the drawer open. Inside sat a worn leather Bible, gold-edged pages, a name embossed on the cover, Celeste Drayton, Kalen's late wife. The nurse lifted it out, flipped it open. Between the pages, tucked carefully into the book of Psalms, was a folded piece of paper. Not hospital stationery, just plain notebook paper, the kind you'd find at a dollar store. The nurse unfolded it. Her eyes widened. Read it, Kalen said. She hesitated, looked at Mason, looked back at Kalen. Read it out loud. Her voice trembled as she began. Mr. Drayton, I know you can't hear me, but I'm going to keep talking anyway. Today your son visited. He didn't stay long, but he held your hand. He's scared. I told him you're stronger than you look. I don't know if that's true, but I needed him to believe it. Your brother came by too. He didn't hold your hand. The room went dead silent. The nurse continued. I finished Matthew today. Tomorrow I'll start Mark. Your wife had beautiful handwriting in the margins. She loved you. I can tell. I hope wherever you are, you can feel that. I hope you know you're not alone. It was signed at the bottom. EQ. Kalen's chest heaved. His eyes burned. He didn't cry. Couldn't cry. But something inside him cracked open anyway. Where is she? He asked again. Quieter this time. Desperate. Dr. Ramsey scrolled frantically through his tablet. We had a nurse named Alara Quinn. She was assigned to this wing, but she was terminated 2 weeks ago. Kalen's head snapped toward Mason. Mason didn't flinch. She violated protocol. Spent unauthorized time with patients. We had to let her go. You fired her. I protected you. From what? From someone who saw an opportunity. Mason's voice sharpened. A poor nurse getting too attached to a billionaire in a coma? Come on, Kalen. Use your head. She was setting you up. The second you woke up, she'd have been filing lawsuits, claiming emotional distress, demanding compensation. Kalen lunged, or tried to. His body was too weak. He collapsed back against the pillows, gasping, but his eyes never left Mason's face. Get out. Mason blinked. What? Get out of my room. Now. For the first time in 3 months, Mason Drayton looked uncertain, but only for a second. He straightened his jacket, nodded at the staff. Give him space. He needs rest. And then he walked out, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the floor like a countdown. The door closed behind him. Kalen stared at the Bible in the nurse's hands, at the note tucked inside, at the proof that someone had cared when it didn't benefit them, when no one was watching, when he couldn't thank them or pay them or even acknowledge they existed. She had stayed anyway, and now she was gone. But Kalen Drayton didn't build an empire by accepting defeat. He reached for the call button, pressed it, waited for the head nurse to arrive. When she did, his voice was steady, calm, final. I need her employee file, her address, everything you have on Alara Quinn. The head nurse hesitated. Sir, that's confidential. I don't care. His eyes locked on hers. Find her, or I'll buy this hospital and find her myself. What the staff didn't know, what even Mason didn't know, was that Kalen Drayton had spent 3 months in darkness, and only one voice had kept him from drowning. Now that he was awake, he wasn't about to let that voice disappear. But finding her would only be the beginning. Because the real question wasn't where Alara Quinn had gone. It was why Mason had worked so hard to make sure she'd never come back. The file arrived in Kalen's room at dawn. He hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. His body ached from months of stillness, his muscles screaming every time he shifted in bed, but his mind refused to shut down. The machines around him hummed their monotonous rhythm, but all he heard was her voice. Even giants need grace. The head nurse, an older woman named Mrs. Tallulah with silver hair pulled tight into a bun, set the manila folder on his lap without a word. Her mouth was pressed into a thin line. Disapproval, or maybe pity. Kalen couldn't tell. Didn't care. This doesn't leave this room, she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. If anyone asks, you didn't get it from me. Understood. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, Mr. Drayton, she was the best nurse we had. Showed up early. Stayed late. Never complained. Some of the staff made fun of her for it. Her eyes flicked toward the hallway. Your brother didn't like her. Said she was unprofessional. But I think he just didn't like that she wasn't afraid of him. Before Kalen could respond, she was gone. He opened the file. The first thing he saw was her photo. Employee ID badge. A young woman with brown skin, dark eyes, and hair pulled back into a neat bun. She wasn't smiling. Hospital policy, probably. But there was something soft in her expression. Something kind. Like she'd looked at the camera and decided to be gentle with whoever might see the photo later. Her name was printed below, Alara Quinn. Age, 24. Address, 1120 Creston Avenue, Apartment 4C, South Ridge. He knew South Ridge. Everyone did. It was the part of the city where the buses stopped running after dark. Where rent was cheap because safety wasn't guaranteed. Where people worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. His jaw tightened. The file listed her work history. 3 years at County General. 2 years here at St. Mary's. No disciplinary actions. No complaints. Just a note at the bottom, dated 2 weeks ago. Terminated for insubordination and unauthorized overtime. escorted off premises by security. Kalen's fingers crushed the edge of the paper. Mason had done this, not because Ilera had done anything wrong, but because she'd been there, because she'd seen something Mason wanted buried. Kalen flipped through the rest of the file. Payroll records, shift logs, and then, tucked at the back, something that made his breath catch. Handwritten notes. Pages of them. Not official charts or medical observations. Just notes. Day 14. Kalen's vitals are stable, but I swear he flinched when I mentioned his son today. I know the doctors say it's involuntary, but I don't think so. Day 23. Read him Psalm 23. His heart rate slowed. Coincidence? Maybe, but I'll keep reading anyway. Day 41. One of the other nurses said I'm wasting my time. Said he's as good as gone. I told her even if that's true, he deserves to hear kindness before he goes. Day 68. Mason came in today with lawyers. They talked about pulling the plug. Kalen's fingers twitched when they said it. I didn't tell them. I should have, but I didn't trust them. Kalen stopped reading. His chest felt too tight. His throat burned. She'd known. She'd known Mason was planning to end him, and she kept it to herself because she didn't trust his own brother. He looked at the address again, memorized it, then closed the file and pressed the call button. Dr. Ramsey entered moments later, looking exhausted. Mr. Drayton, you really should be resting. Discharge me. Dr. Ramsey froze. Excuse me. I'm leaving. Today. Sir, you've been in a coma for 3 months. Your body is weak. Your muscles have atrophied. You need physical therapy, observation, medication adjustments. I'll do it outpatient. Mr. Drayton, I'm not asking. Kalen's voice was calm, controlled. The voice of a man who'd built empires by refusing to hear the word no. Discharge me, or I'll walk out of here in a hospital gown, and you can explain to the board why you let a billionaire leave your care against medical advice. Dr. Ramsey stared at him, then sighed. I'll need you to sign a waiver. Done. By noon, Kalen was dressed in clothes his assistant had brought from home. Black slacks, white shirt, motilla. He looked thinner than he remembered. Pale, hollowed out, but his eyes were sharp. He refused a wheelchair, walked out on his own, even though his legs shook with every step. Staff stared as he passed. Whispers followed him down the corridor like ghosts. Mason was waiting by the elevators. Of course he was. Kalen. Mason's voice was smooth. Concerned. Fake. What are you doing? You need to be in bed. I'm going home. You're not ready. I'm fine. You're not thinking clearly. Kalen stopped walking, turned to face his brother. They were the same height, same build, same blood. But standing there in the hospital hallway, they might as well have been strangers. Where does she live? Kalen asked. Mason didn't blink. Who? Don't. A muscle in Mason's jaw twitched. Kalen, this is ridiculous. You've been unconscious for 3 months. You don't know what you're talking about. Where? Does she live? Mason stepped closer, lowered his voice. You're embarrassing yourself. And the family. That nurse was nobody. A poor girl from South Ridge who saw an opportunity and took it. She wrote those notes to manipulate you, to make you feel indebted. And now you're falling for it. Kalen smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. You're scared. Mason blinked. What? You're scared of her. That's why you fired her. Not because she was unprofessional, but because she saw something you didn't want anyone to see. That's insane. Then why won't you tell me where she is? Mason's face hardened. Because I'm protecting you. From what? From yourself. The elevator doors opened. Kalen stepped inside, pressed the button for the lobby. Mason didn't follow, but as the doors closed, Kalen saw something flicker across his brother's face. Not anger. Fear. Outside, the city air hit Kalen like a wall. Cold. Sharp. Real. His driver pulled up in a black sedan. Opened the door. Kalen slid into the back seat and handed him a slip of paper. Take me here. The driver glanced at the address. His eyebrows rose. Sir, this is South Ridge. Are you sure? Just drive. They pulled away from the hospital, away from the sterile lights and beeping machines, away from Mason's carefully constructed lies. Kalen leaned back against the leather seat and closed his eyes. He could still hear her voice. Even giants need grace. He didn't know what he'd say when he found her. Didn't know if she'd even remember him. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't letting her go. Not now. Not ever. Because whatever Mason was hiding, whatever reason he'd had for erasing her from Kaylin's life, it was bigger than a hospital policy violation. And Kaylin Drayton didn't stop until he found the truth. Even if it destroyed everything he thought he knew. South Ridge looked worse in daylight. Kaylin stared out the tinted window as the sedan rolled through streets he'd only ever seen on the news. Graffiti-tagged brick walls, boarded-up storefronts, chain-link fences sagging under their own rust. A group of kids sat on a stoop, watching the black car pass with suspicious eyes. One of them threw a rock. It bounced off the hood with a dull thunk. The driver flinched. "Sir, maybe we should." "Keep going." They turned onto Creston Avenue. The buildings here were taller, but no cleaner. Laundry hung from fire escapes. Trash piled up in alleyways. Somewhere a dog barked. Somewhere else, glass shattered. The sedan stopped in front of 1120, a 5-story apartment building with peeling paint and cracked windows. The front door hung crooked on its hinges. Kaylin stepped out. The driver leaned through the window. "Should I wait here?" "Yes." "How long?" Kaylin didn't answer. He was already walking toward the entrance. Inside, the hallway smelled like mildew and old cooking oil. The elevator had an out-of-order sign taped across it. Kaylin took the stairs. By the time he reached the 4th floor, his legs were shaking. His chest burned. 3 months of lying still had turned his body into something unfamiliar. Weak. Fragile. He hated it, but he kept moving. Apartment 4C was at the end of the hall. The number hung crooked on the door. Faded paint. Scratched wood. No peephole. Kaylin raised his hand to knock, then stopped. What was he going to say? "Thank you for talking to me while I was unconscious. I heard your voice, and now I need to know why. My brother fired you, and I don't know what he's hiding, but I think it has something to do with you." He lowered his hand. This was insane. Mason was right. He wasn't thinking clearly. 3 months in a coma had scrambled his brain, made him fixate on a stranger. A nurse who'd done her job. Nothing more. He turned to leave. The door opened. "Can I help you?" Kaylin froze. She stood in the doorway wearing faded jeans and an oversized sweater. No muck-up. Hair down. She looked younger without the uniform. Tired, like she hadn't slept in days. But her eyes were the same. Soft, kind, cautious. She didn't recognize him. Why would she? He'd been unconscious every time she'd seen him. A body in a bed. A project. A routine. "I'm sorry," Kaylin said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. "I think I have the wrong apartment." He turned to go. "Wait." He stopped. Alara stepped into the hallway, frowning. Her eyes scanned his face. Confused. Searching. Then they went wide. "Mr. Drayton?" Kaylin turned back. "You remember me?" "You're—" She stepped closer. Her hand lifted then dropped, like she wanted to reach out, but didn't know if she was allowed. "You're awake." "I am. But you're supposed to be in the hospital. Dr. Ramsey said you'd need weeks of recovery. Physical therapy. Observation. You shouldn't be. I needed to see you." The words hung in the air between them. Alara blinked. "Why?" Kaylin didn't know how to answer that. Not in a way that made sense. Not in a way that didn't sound desperate or unhinged or like he'd lost his mind somewhere between the coma and consciousness. So he told the truth. "Because you're the only person who talked to me like I was still human." Her face softened, then hardened. She crossed her arms. "You shouldn't be here. I know. You need rest. Medical supervision. You could collapse. You could." "I heard you." Alara stopped talking. "When I was under," Kaylin continued, "I heard your voice. Every night. Reading to me. Praying over me. Telling me I wasn't alone." His throat tightened. "You're the reason I didn't give up." Her eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back. "Mr. Drayton, I was just doing my job." "No, you weren't." He pulled the folded note from his pocket. The one she'd left in the Bible. "You wrote this. You stayed when you didn't have to. You cared when no one else did." Alara stared at the paper in his hand. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "How did you get that?" "Does it matter?" "Yes." Her voice sharpened. "Because I was fired for doing exactly what you're thanking me for. Your brother made sure I'd never work in a hospital again. He blacklisted me. Do you know what that means?" Do you know how hard it is to find work when a billionaire tells the medical community you're a liability? Kaylin's jaw tightened. I didn't know. Well, now you do. She turned to go back inside. Wait, Kaylin said. Please. Alara stopped. Didn't turn around. I'm sorry, Kaylin said. For what Mason did. For what you lost. I didn't know he'd. He did it because I overheard him. Kaylin went still. Alara turned back around. Her eyes were hard now. Angry. He came to your room with lawyers. Talked about declaring you legally incapacitated. Said he'd liquidate the company before you woke up. I was changing your for. He didn't see me behind the curtain. But I heard everything. Kaylin's blood went cold. I should have reported it, Alara continued. Should have told someone. But I didn't know who to trust. And then 2 days later, he had me fired. Escorted out by security. Made sure everyone knew I was the problem. Her voice cracked. So don't come here and thank me, Mr. Drayton. Because all your kindness did was ruin my life. She stepped back inside and closed the door. The lock clicked. Kaylin stood in the hallway, staring at the crooked number 4C, his mind racing. Mason had tried to kill him. Not with a weapon. Not with poison. With paperwork. With lawyers. With the slow, legal suffocation of a man who couldn't fight back. And Alara had been the only one standing in his way. So Mason had destroyed her. Kaylin pressed his palm against the door. I'm going to fix this. No answer. I'm going to fix what he did to you. I promise. Still nothing. But he could hear her breathing on the other side. Could feel her presence like a pulse. I don't need you to forgive me, Kaylin said quietly. But I need you to let me make this right. Silence. Then, so soft he almost missed it. You can't. Kaylin stepped back. His chest ached. His legs trembled. He needed to sit down. Needed water. Needed to admit that Mason had been right and he wasn't strong enough for this. But he didn't leave. Instead, he pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts, found his lawyer's number. The call connected on the second ring. Mr. Drayton? The voice was shocked, relieved. My God, we heard you were awake. Are you? I need you to pull every document my brother signed while I was unconscious. Every contract, every transfer, every board resolution. I want them on my desk by tonight. Sir, that's going to take time. There are hundreds of. Then hire more people. Mr. Drayton. And I need a full investigation into Alara Quinn, nurse at St. Mary's. Fired 2 weeks ago. I want to know who authorized it, what reasons were given, and whether my brother had anything to do with it. A pause. You want me to investigate your own brother? Yes. Sir, with all due respect, you've been in a coma for 3 months. Maybe you should take some time before. Do it. Tonight. Kaylin ended the call. Turned back to the door. I'm not leaving until you let me help you, he said. No response. So Kaylin sat down. Right there in the hallway. Back against the wall. Legs stretched out. He wasn't going anywhere. Because somewhere between waking up and finding her, he'd realized something. Mason hadn't just tried to kill him. He tried to erase the one person who'd kept Kaylin alive. And that was a mistake. Because Kaylin Drayton had spent 3 months trapped in darkness. Now he was awake. And he wasn't letting anyone disappear again. Not her. Not the truth. Not even if it meant burning his own empire to the ground. Alara didn't open the door. Kaylin sat in the hallway for 40 minutes. Long enough for his legs to go numb. Long enough for a neighbor to walk past, glance at him, and mutter something about rich people losing their minds. Long enough for his driver to call twice, worried. He ignored the calls. Inside the apartment, he could hear muffled sounds. Footsteps. Running water. A cabinet cuisine. She was pretending he wasn't there. But she hadn't left. That meant something. At the 43-minute mark, the door finally opened. Alara stood there holding 2 bottles of water. She handed him one without looking at him, then sat down on the floor across from him, back against the opposite wall. You're going to pass out if you don't drink, she said. Kaylin took the bottle, opened it, drank half of it in one go. His hand shook. She noticed. You shouldn't have left the hospital, Alara said. Her voice was softer now, less angry, more resigned. You're not ready. I'm Fina. You're not. She wasn't wrong. His body felt like it belonged to someone else. Every movement required effort. Every breath reminded him how weak he'd become. But he wasn't leaving. Why are you really here? Alara asked. Kaylin set the bottle down, looked at her. Because I need to know why you stayed. I told you. It was my job. No. He shook his head. You wrote those notes when no one was watching. You stayed late when you weren't getting paid. You prayed over me when the other nurses were laughing at you. That's not a job. That's something else. Alara looked away. Her jaw tightened. Why? Kaylin pressed. She didn't answer. Alara. Because I let someone die alone once. The words came out flat. Hard. Like she'd been holding them in too long. And I swore I'd never do it again. Kaylin went still. Alara pulled her knees up to her chest, wrapped her arms around them. His name was Mr. Lewis. He was 76. No family. No visitors. Just a Medicaid patient in the corner bed that everyone ignored. Her voice cracked. I was covering 2 wards that night. Understaffed. Overworked. He kept pressing his call button, but I couldn't get to him. Too many emergencies. Too many people screaming. So I told him I'd be there in 10 minutes. She stopped. Swallowed hard. I got there in 30. He was already gone. Eyes open. Hand still reaching for the button. Tears slid down her face. She didn't wipe them away. His last words were in the chart. The night nurse wrote them down before she clocked out. He said, "Don't rush off, nurse. Just stay." Kaylin's chest ached. "So when they assigned me to you," Alara continued, "I didn't care that you were rich. Didn't care that everyone said you'd never wake up. I just knew I wasn't going to let another person die, thinking no one cared." She finally looked at him. Her eyes were red. Exhausted. "That's why I stayed, Mr. Drayton. Not because I wanted something from you, but because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't." Kaylin didn't know what to say, so he said the only thing that mattered. "Thank you." Alara wiped her eyes. "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, you do." He leaned forward. "Because you saved my life, and then my brother destroyed yours for it. So I'm going to fix that. You can't. Watch me, Mr. Drayton." "Kaylin." He held her gaze. "My name is Kaylin." She blinked. "I can't call you that." "Why not?" "Because you're—" She gestured vaguely at him. At his clothes, his posture, the invisible weight of money and power that followed him everywhere. "You're you, and I'm just the person who kept me alive." His voice was firm. Final. "So yes, you can call me Kaylin." A long silence stretched between them. Then, quietly, she said, "Kaylin." Something in his chest loosened. He stood. Slowly, his legs protested. Alara stood too, instinctively reaching out to steady him. Her hand caught his elbow. "You really shouldn't be walking around," she said. "Then help me." She hesitated, then sighed. "Fine. But only because I don't want you collapsing in my hallway and making me look bad to the neighbors." She helped him down the stairs. Slower this time, one step at a time. Her hand stayed on his arm the whole way. When they reached the lobby, Kaylin's driver jumped out of the sedan, eyes wide. "Sir, are you?" "I'm Fine." Kaylin turned to Alara. "Come with me." She pulled her hand back. "What?" "Back to the estate. I have a guest house. Fully furnished. You can stay there while I sort this out." "Sort what out?" "Everything." He gestured toward the car. "Your job. Your reputation. My brother. All of it." Alara shook her head. "I'm not going anywhere with you." "Why not?" "Because I don't know you." "Yes, you do." Kaylin stepped closer. Not threatening. Just close enough that she had to look up to meet his eyes. "You know me better than anyone. You spent 3 months talking to me. Reading to me. You know what I care about. What scares me. What keeps me fighting. I know who you were when you were unconscious," Alara corrected. "That's not the same thing." "Then get to know who I am now." She stared at him. "Why does this matter so much to you?" "Because when I was drowning, you were the only voice I heard. Because my brother tried to kill me, and you were the only one who noticed. Because I've spent 3 months in darkness, and you were the only light." But what Kaylin said was, "Because I owe you. And I always pay my debts." Alara studied his face, searching for lies, for manipulation, for whatever angle rich men always had. She didn't find one. "1 week," she finally said. "I'll stay for 1 week. You fix what your brother did, and then I'm gone." "Deal." She climbed into the back seat. Kaylin followed. The driver closed the door and pulled away from Southridge. As the buildings blurred past the window, Alara glanced at Kaylin. "This is a mistake." Probably. Your brother's going to find out. I hope he does. She frowned. Why? Kalen leaned back against the seat. For the first time since waking up, he felt something other than exhaustion. He felt ready. Because it's time Mason learned what happens when you try to erase people who matter. Alara didn't respond. Just watched him. Wary. Uncertain. But she didn't ask to be let out. And as the sedan rolled through the city, away from South Ridge and toward the Drayton estate, neither of them noticed the black SUV following 3 cars behind, or the phone call being made from inside it, or Mason's voice on the other end, cold and calm, saying only 2 words. Find her. The Drayton estate sat behind iron gates and manicured hedges, a sprawling monument to wealth that felt obscene after the crumbling streets of South Ridge. Alara pressed her face to the window as they passed the main house. White stone, columns, windows that stretched 2 stories high. That's where you live? She asked. That's where I used to live. Kalen nodded toward a smaller building beyond the fountain. Guest house is better. Quieter. The sedan stopped in front of a structure that looked bigger than Alara's entire apartment building. 2 stories. Wraparound porch. Ivy climbing the walls. The driver opened her door. She stepped out slowly, like the ground might collapse under her feet. This is the guest house. You'll have your own space. Kalen climbed out beside her, moving carefully. Kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. Everything you need. Alara turned to face him. I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's protection. From what? Before Kalen could answer, the front door of the main house flew open. Mason. He crossed the driveway in long strides, his face a mask of controlled fury. What the hell is this? Kalen didn't flinch. This is me bringing a guest home. Mason's eyes slid to Alara. Recognition flashed across his face. Then something darker. You got to be kidding me. She's staying in the guest house, Kalen said. His voice was calm, but his body had gone rigid. As my guest. Mason laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound. Your guest? Brother, you just woke up from a 3-month coma. You're not thinking straight. This woman has a name. This woman, Mason continued, louder now, was fired for cause. She violated hospital policy, spent unauthorized time with patients. She's lucky I didn't have her prosecuted for. For what? Kalen stepped forward. His legs shook, but his voice didn't. For doing her job? For staying when everyone else left? For keeping me alive while you were in boardrooms planning my funeral? Mason's jaw clenched. That's not what happened. Then tell me what did happen. Kalen moved closer. They were inches apart now. Same height. Same eyes. Same blood. Tell me why you were meeting with lawyers about declaring me incapacitated. Tell me why you needed me legally dead before my heart stopped beating. Mason's face went pale. His eyes darted to Alara. Back to Kalen. She told you that. She overheard you. And you believe her? Mason's voice dripped with condescension. And nobody from South Ridge over your own brother? Yes. The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Mason's mouth opened. Closed. His hands curled into fists at his sides. You're making a mistake. Probably. Kalen didn't move. But it's my mistake to make. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The fountain gurgled behind them. Birds sang in the hedges. Somewhere in the distance, a lawn mower hummed. Then Mason stepped back, smoothed his jacket. His face returned to its usual mask of polished control. Fine. He looked at Alara. Enjoy your stay, Miss Quinn. But when this blows up in his face, and it will, don't come crying to me. He turned and walked back toward the main house. Didn't look back. Didn't slam the door. That somehow made it worse. Alara let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. He's going to make our lives hell. He could try. Kalen, let me show you the guest house. He started walking, slower than before. The confrontation had drained him. Alara caught up. You need to rest. I will. After. She wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him he was being reckless, stubborn, exactly the kind of patient who ended up back in the hospital with complications. But the set of his jaw told her it wouldn't matter. So she followed him up the porch steps and through the front door. Inside, the guest house looked like something from a magazine. Hardwood floors, white walls, furniture that probably cost more than her yearly rent. A kitchen with marble counters, sliding glass doors that opened onto a private garden. There's 3 bedrooms upstairs, Kaylin said. Take whichever one you want. Bathroom stocked. If you need anything else, just ask. Alara turned in a slow circle. This is too much. It's what I have. But I don't, she stopped. Try it again. I don't belong here. Kaylin lowered himself onto the couch. Finally gave in to the exhaustion. Neither do I. Not anymore. She sat across from him. What do you mean? He was quiet for a moment, staring at his hands. When I was under, I could hear everything. Not just you. Everyone. The doctors talking about my prognosis. The nurses gossiping about my family. Mason. He trailed off. Mason planning my death like it was a business merger. Alara's chest tightened. I thought I built something that mattered, Kaylin continued. A company. A legacy. Something my son could inherit and be proud of. But lying there listening to my own brother's scheme to take it all away, I realized I'd built nothing. Just money. Just power. Just emptiness. He looked up at her. And then I heard you. Talking to me like I was still human. Reading to me from my dead wife's Bible. Telling me giants need grace. His voice cracked. You gave me a reason to fight back. To open my eyes. To remember what it feels like to be seen as more than a bank account. Alara didn't know what to say. So no, Kaylin said softly. You don't belong here. But neither do I. Not the way it is now. And maybe that's the point. The silence stretched between them. Heavy, but not uncomfortable. Finally, Alara spoke. What happens next? I don't know. Kaylin leaned back. But I know I'm not letting Mason get away with what he did. To me. To you. To anyone else he's destroyed on his way to the top. He's powerful. So am I. He's dangerous. Then we'll be dangerous too. Alara shook her head. A small smile tugged at her lips despite everything. You just woke up from coma. You can barely walk. And you want to go to war with your own brother. Yes. That's insane. Probably. Kaylin met her eyes. But you stayed with me when everyone else gave up. So I'm betting you know a little something about insane. She laughed. Soft. Surprised. Like she'd forgotten how. Then her smile faded. Your brother's watching us right now, isn't he? Kaylin glanced toward the main house. The windows were dark, but he could feel it. That cold awareness of being observed. Yes. And he's planning something. Definitely. Alara stood, walked to the window, stared out at the perfectly trimmed lawn, the fountain, the iron gates keeping the rest of the world out. Or keeping them in. I should leave, she said quietly, before this gets worse. Kaylin didn't respond right away. Just watched her, the way she held herself. Tense, ready to run, like she'd spent her whole life expecting to be thrown out of places she didn't belong. You could, he finally said. I wouldn't stop you. But then Mason wins. He erases you, makes you disappear, turns you into another person who didn't matter. Alara turned. I don't matter. You matter to me. The words landed between them like a confession. Alara's breath caught. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked away. I don't even know you, she whispered. Yes, you do. Kaylin stood, walked toward her. Slow, careful. You know what scares me? What keeps me fighting? You know the prayers I needed to hear. The words that kept me alive. He stopped in front of her. You know me better than my own family does. And that terrifies me, because it means I can't pretend anymore. Can't hide behind money or power or the Drayton name. His voice dropped. You saw me when I had nothing. When I couldn't move or speak or fight back. And you stayed anyway. Alara's eyes filled with tears. I didn't know you'd remember. I remember everything. A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. This is a bad idea. Probably the worst I've ever had. You're going to regret this. Maybe. Kaylin smiled. Tired. Genuine. But I'd regret letting you walk away more. Alara stared at him, searching his face for lies. For manipulation. For the angle. She still couldn't find one. 1 week, she finally said. That's it. 1 week. She nodded, turned back to the window. But this time, she didn't move toward the door. Kaylin walked back to the couch, sat down, let his body finally give in to exhaustion. There's food in the kitchen, he said. Help yourself. I'm going to close my eyes for a minute. You should go to the hospital. I'm Fina. Kaylin. But he was already asleep, or pretending to be. Alara couldn't tell. She stood there for a long moment, watching him. This stranger who wasn't a stranger. This billionaire who'd shown up at her apartment like a ghost. This man who'd somehow convinced her to walk back into the world that had destroyed her. She should leave, should grab her things and disappear before Mason made good on whatever threat he was planning. But she didn't. Instead, she found a blanket in the hall closet, draped it over Kalen's sleeping form, made sure he was breathing steady. Then she walked upstairs to choose a bedroom. Because for the first time in months, someone had told her she mattered. And maybe, just maybe, she wanted to believe it. Even if it was insane. Even if it was dangerous. Even if it meant going to war with a man who'd already proven he could destroy her life with a single phone call. Outside, in the main house, Mason stood at his office window, watching the guest house, watching the lights flicker on upstairs. His phone buzzed. He answered without looking at the screen. "Sir," the voice on the other end was cautious. "Professional. You wanted an update on the girl. What did you find?" "She's clean. No criminal record. No this. No scandals. Just a nurse who lost her job." Mason's jaw tightened. "Day deeper." "Sir, there's nothing. There's always something." His voice went cold. "Find it. I don't care how long it takes. Find something I can use." He ended the call, stared at the guest house. Kalen thought he could protect her. Thought love or gratitude or whatever delusional emotion he'd conjured up in that hospital bed would be enough. But Mason had spent 3 months preparing for this. 3 months building alliances, moving assets, securing power. He wasn't about to let a poor nurse from South Ridge ruin everything. Not her. Not Kalen. Not anyone. And if his brother wanted to play hero, then Mason would remind him what happened to heroes in the real world. They lost. Every single time. Comment below if you believe Kalen can protect Alara from Mason's revenge. Or if you think she should have run while she still had the chance. The file landed on Mason's desk at midnight. Thick, heavy, bound with rubber bands like it contained secrets too dangerous to spill loose. His private investigator stood in the doorway, wet from rain, looking like he just crawled out of hell. "You're not going to like this," the man said. Mason didn't look up, just opened the file. Started reading. His face went pale, then red, then something worse than anger. Fear. "Where did you get this?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Hospital records. Sealed. Took 3 bribes and a forged court order." The investigator shifted his weight. "You sure you want to use it?" Mason's hands shook as he flipped through pages. Medical charts. Psych evaluations. A single photograph paperclipped to the back. Does Kalen know? No one knows. It's buried deep. Mason closed the file, leaned back in his leather chair, stared at the ceiling like it might offer answers. It didn't, but it didn't matter, because what he held in his hands was a weapon, the kind that didn't just destroy people. It erased them. "Give me a reporter," Mason said. "Someone hungry. Someone who doesn't ask questions." "Sir." "Do it. Tonight." The investigator hesitated. "This is going to hurt her bad. That's the point." He left. Mason sat alone in his office, opened the file again, stared at the photograph. Alara Quinn at 16. Hospital gown. Wrists wrapped in bandages. Eyes hollow and dead. The psych evaluation was worse. Patient admitted following suicide attempt. History of depression. Self-harm. Institutionalized for 6 months. Prognosis uncertain. Mason's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. His brother wanted to protect her? Fine. Let him try. Because by tomorrow morning, the whole world would know exactly who Alara Quinn really was. A broken girl who'd tried to die once, and might try again. Across the estate, Alara woke to the sound of her phone ringing. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something in her gut twisted, told her to pick up. She did. Static. Breathing. Then a voice. Male. Cold. "You should have stayed in South Ridge." The line went dead. Alara sat up in bed, heart pounding, hands shaking. Downstairs, she heard movement. Footsteps. A door opening. She grabbed her phone, crept to the hallway. Kalen stood at the bottom of the stairs, fully dressed, eyes dark. "We need to leave," he said. "What? Why?" "Mason knows something. I don't know what. But my head of security just called. There's a reporter parked outside the gates asking questions about you." Alara's blood went cold. What kind of questions? Kalen's jaw tightened. The kind that ruins lives. He didn't know. She could see it in his face. He didn't know about the hospital, the pills, the razors, the 6 months she'd spent in a psychiatric ward trying to remember why living mattered. And now Mason was going to tell him. Tell everyone. Alara. Kalen climbed the stairs, stopped in front of her. Whatever he found, it doesn't matter. We'll fight it. Together. But it did matter. Because the world didn't forgive broken girls who try to leave it. I need to go, she whispered. No, Kalen, you don't understand. Then help me understand. But before she could answer, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. One sentence. No puntuación. Check the news. Alara's hand shook as she opened her browser. The headline loaded, and her entire world collapsed. Billionaire's mystery nurse, troubled past revealed. Kalen Drayton's new companion attempted suicide at 16. Below it, the photograph. Her, 16, hospital gown. Dead eyes. Kalen grabbed the phone from her hands. Read the screen. His face went white. Alara. But she was already running. Down the stairs. Out the door. Into the night. Behind her, Kalen shouted her name. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because Mason had done exactly what she'd known he would. He'd turned her pain into a weapon. And now the whole world knew the truth she'd spent 8 years trying to bury. She wasn't a saint. She was just a girl who'd once wanted to die. And maybe, deep down, still did. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens when Kalen discovers the full truth and whether Alara's past will destroy them both. Drop a comment if you've ever felt judged for your darkest moments. Your story might inspire someone tonight. Kalen found her at the fountain, sitting on the stone edge, soaking wet from rain, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. He didn't say anything, just sat beside her, took off his jacket, draped it over her shoulders. She didn't pull away, didn't acknowledge him either, just stared at the water, at her reflection rippling and breaking and reforming wrong. I was 16, she finally said, voice flat, empty. My mom had just died. Cancer. We didn't have insurance. Couldn't afford treatment. I watched her waste away in our living room because we couldn't even afford a hospice bed. Kalen stayed quiet. Let her talk. After she died, I had to drop out of school, get a job, take care of my little brother. But I couldn't. I was just a kid. Didn't know how to pay bills or buy groceries or pretend everything was okay when it wasn't. Her voice cracked. So one night, I took all the pills in the medicine cabinet. Figure my brother would be better off without me dragging him down. Rain fell harder. Lightning cracked across the sky. Obviously it didn't work, Alara continued. Neighbor found me. Called 911. I woke up in a psych ward with bandages on my wrists and a social worker telling me I'd never see my brother again unless I got better. She turned to look at Kalen. Her eyes were empty. So I got better. Took the meds. Did the therapy. Pretended I wanted to live until I actually did. Spent 6 months locked up learning how to fake being okay. A bitter laugh. And now your brother just told the world I'm broken. That I'm dangerous. That I tried to kill myself and might do it again. Kalen's hands curled into fists. He's wrong. Is he? Alara stood. The jacket fell off her shoulders. Because I look at you and I see a man who almost died. Who fought to come back. Who has everything to live for. She pressed a hand to her chest. And I look at me and I see a girl who wanted to die. Who only survived because someone found her in time. Who doesn't belong in a world like yours. That's not true. Yes, it is. She was shouting now. You keep acting like I saved you. Like I'm some angel who appeared when you needed her. But I'm not. I'm just a broken girl who happened to be assigned to your room. That's it. That's all I am. Kalen stood. Walked toward her. She stepped back. Don't. But he kept coming. Until they were inches apart. Until she had nowhere left to run. You think I don't know what it's like to want to give up? His voice was low. Rough. I spent 3 months trapped in my own body. Listening to my brother plan my death. Listening to doctors say I'd never wake up. Listening to silence so loud I thought I'd go insane. He grabbed her shoulders. Gentle but firm. And the only thing that kept me fighting was your voice. Telling me I mattered. That even giants need grace. That someone cared enough to stay. His eyes burned into hers. So don't you dare tell me you're broken. Because the woman who saved my life isn't broken. She's the strongest person I've ever met. Alara's face crumpled. You don't mean that. Yes, I do. You barely know me. I know enough. Tears streamed down her face, mixed with rain. Mason's going to destroy me. Everyone who reads that article will think I'm unstable. Dangerous. No hospital will ever hire me. No one will ever trust me. I'm done. Then we'll rebuild. Kaylin pulled her closer. Together. What? Her voice broke. Why do you care so much? Because when I was drowning, you were my air. Because my brother tried to erase you, and that makes me want to burn his world down. Because I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who wanted something from me, and you're the only one who wanted nothing. But what he said was simpler. Because you matter. Alara collapsed against him, sobbed into his chest. Let 8 years of pain and shame and fear pour out in the rain. Kaylin held her, didn't let go, didn't tell her to stop crying or pull herself together or be strong. Just held her. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were red, exhausted. What do we do now? Kaylin's jaw tightened. We fight back. How? By telling the truth. Your truth, not the version Mason's selling. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling a press conference. Tomorrow morning. You're going to stand beside me and tell your story. All of it. The pain. The survival. The reason you became a nurse. Kaylin, I can't. Yes, you can. His voice left no room for argument. Because hiding gives Mason power. But owning your story? That takes it away. Alara stared at him. Terrified. Hopeful. What if they don't believe me? Then we make them. She wanted to argue. Wanted to run. Wanted to disappear back into Southridge, where nobody knew her name and nobody cared. But she didn't. Because for the first time in 8 years, someone was telling her that her past didn't define her future. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to believe it. Inside the main house, Mason watched from his office window. Watched Kaylin hold her. Watched them walk back to the guest house together. His phone rang. The reporter. The story's trending, the man said. #1 on social media. Everyone's talking about it. Good. But there's a problem. Mason's stomach dropped. What problem? People aren't reacting the way we expected. They're not calling her dangerous. They're calling her brave. Saying she's a survivor. That mental health stigma is wrong. Some celebrity just tweeted support, and it's getting millions of likes. Mason's hand tightened around the phone. What? Your brother's ex-nurse is becoming a hero. And you're becoming the villain who exposed her trauma for revenge. The line went dead. Mason stood frozen, staring at his reflection in the dark window. He'd miscalculated, turned her pain into ammunition. But the gun had exploded in his hand, and now the whole world was watching, waiting to see what he'd do next. Waiting to see if Kaylin Drayton's love was strong enough to protect a woman the world suddenly wanted to save. And Mason? Mason had just run out of weapons. Or so he thought. Share this story if you believe past pain doesn't define future worth. Comment survivor if Alara deserves a second chance. And subscribe because tomorrow, everything changes when they face the cameras together. The press conference was set for 9 a.m. By 8:30, the Drayton estate looked like a war zone. News vans lined the street. Reporters shouted questions at security. Helicopters circled overhead. Inside the guest house, Alara stood in front of a mirror, hands shaking, unable to button her shirt. Kaylin appeared behind her, wordlessly took over. Button it for her. I can't do this, she whispered. Yes, you can. Everyone's going to see me. Judge me. Tear me apart. Let them. His hands rested on her shoulders. Because by the time you're done talking, they'll know exactly who you are. Not who Mason says you are. She met his eyes in the mirror. What if I freeze? Then I'll be right there. And we'll do it together. A knock at the door. His publicist entered. Nervous. Sweating. Mr. Drayton, we have a problem. Your brother just showed up. Says he has new information. Wants to speak before you do. Kaylin's jaw clenched. Absolutely not. Sir, he's the acting CEO. He has the right. I don't care what rights he thinks he has. This is my press conference. My house. My life. He grabbed his jacket. Tell Mason if he wants a microphone, he can hold his own event. This one's mine. The publicist fled. Alara grabbed Kaylin's arm. What if he interrupts? What if he says something that makes it worse? Then we handle it. Kaylin turned to face her. Alara, listen to me. Mason's weapon was your past, but you're about to take that weapon away. You're about to show the world that surviving doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger than anyone who's never had a fight. Her eyes filled with tears. I am scared. So am I. He took her hand. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. They walked outside together. The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed like lightning. Questions flew from every direction. Microphones shoved forward like weapons. Kaylin led her to the podium, stood beside her, didn't let go of her hand. Mason stood off to the side, arms crossed, face blank, waiting. Kaylin leaned into the microphone. Thank you all for coming. I'll keep this brief. 3 months ago, I was in a car accident. I spent that time in a coma. And when I woke up, the first person I asked for was the nurse who'd taken care of me. He glanced at Alara, squeezed her hand. That nurse was Alara Quinn. And yesterday, my brother released her private medical records without consent, exposed her trauma to the world, tried to paint her as unstable, dangerous, unworthy of trust. His voice hardened. But here's what he didn't tell you. Alara Quinn spent 3 months talking to me when no one else bothered, reading to me, praying over me, staying past her shifts without pay because she believed I deserved dignity even if I never woke up. The crowd went silent. She saved my life, not with medicine, but with compassion. And when I woke up and asked for her, I discovered my brother had fired her, blacklisted her, made sure she'd never work in healthcare again. Gasps rippled through the reporters. Why? Kaylin's eyes locked on Mason. Because she overheard him planning to declare me legally incapacitated so he could liquidate my company. She was the only witness to his attempted corporate murder. So he destroyed her. Mason's face went white. And when that wasn't enough, he dug up her past, found her darkest moment, and weaponized it. Kaylin turned to Alara, nodded. She stepped forward, legs shaking, voice barely audible. My name is Alara Quinn, and when I was 16, I tried to kill myself. The silence was deafening. I'm not ashamed of that anymore, because that moment doesn't define me. What defines me is what I did after. I got help. I fought back. I spent 6 months learning how to live again. And when I got out, I decided I'd spend my life making sure no one else ever felt as alone as I did. Her voice grew stronger. So I became a nurse. I worked in hospitals where people die scared and alone. I stayed with patients nobody else wanted. I held hands. I prayed. I refused to let anyone suffer in silence. Tears streamed down her face. And then I met Kaylin Drayton, a man trapped in his own body, a man everyone else had given up on. I did what I always do. I stayed. She looked directly into the cameras. So yes, I tried to die once, but I didn't. I survived, and I spent the next 8 years saving lives because of it. If that makes me unstable, then I'm proud to be unstable, because at least I care. The crowd erupted, not with questions, with applause. Reporters wiped their eyes. Cameramen lowered their equipment. Even the hardened journalists looked shaken. Mason stood frozen, his carefully constructed plan crumbling around him. Then someone shouted from the back, "Mr. Mason Drayton, is it true you tried to have your brother declared legally dead?" Mason's mouth opened, closed. Another reporter, "Did you fire Miss Quinn to cover up your corporate fraud? Did you illegally obtain her medical records? Are you facing criminal charges?" Mason looked at Kaylin, at Alara, at the cameras capturing his silence. Then he turned and walked away. No statement, no defense, just gone. The publicist stepped forward. "That concludes today's conference. Thank you." But as Kaylin and Alara turned to leave, one reporter shouted a final question. "Mr. Drayton, are you in love with her?" Kaylin stopped, turned back, looked at Alara. She stared at him, waiting. The world held its breath. "Yes," he said simply, "I am." And then he kissed her, right there, in front of the cameras, in front of Mason's shattered reputation, in front of the whole watching world. When they pulled apart, Alara was crying. "You didn't have to say that." "Yes, I did." Kaylin smiled. "Because it's true." Behind them, unseen by anyone, Mason's lawyer made a phone call. 2 words. Plan B. Whatever Mason had lost today, he wasn't done. Not yet. Because men like him didn't accept defeat. They just changed tactics. And the war for Kalen's empire and Alara's life had only just begun. If you believe love is worth fighting for, share this story. Comment fearless if you'd stand beside someone the world judged. Subscribe because the final battle is coming, and not everyone survives. We drop new stories that inspire every week. Turn on notifications so you never miss one. The board meeting was scheduled for Monday. Emergency session, called by Mason. 5 votes needed to remove Kalen as CEO. Mason had 7. Kalen sat in his office Sunday night, staring at the wall of faces. Board members he'd known for years. Men and women he'd made millionaires. People he'd trusted. All of them had betrayed him. His lawyer sat across the desk. Grim. Exhausted. There's no way around this. Mason's been working them for months. Made promises. Offered positions. Threatened lawsuits. By tomorrow morning, you'll be out. Kalen didn't respond. Sir, we need to consider a settlement. Walk away with your dignity. Maybe negotiate a severance package. No, Mr. Drayton, I'm not walking away. Kalen's voice was ice. He tried to kill me. He destroyed Alara. And now he wants my company? No, I'm going to that meeting. And I'm going to fight. The lawyer side. With what? He has the votes. Then I'll change their minds. Ow! Kalen pulled a folder from his desk drawer. Slid across. The lawyer opened it. His face went pale. Where did you get this? Does it matter? Sir, this is explosive. If you use this, it'll destroy Mason. But it'll also tank the company's stock. Hurt innocent employees. Cause a scandal that could. I know. Kalen's hands were steady. But he left me no choice. Inside the folder were bank statements. Offshore accounts. Wire transfers showing Mason had been siphoning company funds for years. Millions funneled to shell corporations. Hidden from shareholders. Hidden from Kalen. Proof of embezzlement. Proof that would send Mason to prison. The lawyer closed the folder. When do you want to use it? Tomorrow. Right before the vote. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. The boardroom filled with men in suits and women in pearls. Lawyers lined the walls. Mason sat at the head of the table, calm and confident. Kalen entered last. Alara beside him. Mason's smile faltered. Brother, I didn't realize you were bringing guests. She's not a guest. Kalen pulled out a chair for Alara. She's the reason we're having this meeting. So she deserves to be here. Murmurs around the table. The board chair cleared his throat. Mr. Drayton, this is highly irregular. So, is my brother trying to have me declared legally dead? Kalen sat, folded his hands. But here we are. Mason leaned forward. Let's keep this professional. We're here to discuss leadership. Your recovery has been admirable. But the company needs stability. And your recent behavior, bringing an employee into your personal life, holding unauthorized press conferences, suggests you're not ready to lead. My behavior? Kalen's voice was dangerously calm. Tell me, Mason, what behavior should I exhibit? The kind where I steal from my own company. The room went silent. Mason's face drained of color. Kalen slid the folder across the table. Offshore accounts. Shell corporations. $11 million transferred out of company funds over the past 18 months. All authorized by you. The board members grabbed the documents. Flipped through them. Their faces shifted from confusion to shock to horror. Mason stood. Those are fabricated. He's lying to save himself. The FBI verified them, Kalen's lawyer said. This morning. They're real. Mason's mouth opened. Nothing came out. So here's what's going to happen, Kalen continued. You're going to resign. Immediately. You're going to return every dollar you stole. And you're going to disappear from my life, my company, and Alara's world forever. And if I don't, then I hand this to the feds, and you spend the next decade in prison. Mason looked around the table. At the board members who'd promised him loyalty. At the lawyers who'd helped him build his case. No one met his eyes. You're bluffing, Mason said, voice shaking. Try me. The silence stretched. Then Mason grabbed his briefcase. Walked to the door. Stopped. Turned back. You think you've won. His voice was quiet. Deadly. But you haven't. Because the second you chose her over family, you lost everything that mattered. No. Kalen stood. I chose her over you. There's a difference. Mason's jaw clenched. Then he left. The door slammed behind him. The board chair exhaled. Well, I suppose we need to vote on new leadership. But Kalen wasn't listening. He was looking at Alara. She sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes forward, but her shoulders shook, not from fear, from relief. After the meeting, they walked through the gardens, past the fountain, past the hedges, out to the edge of the property where the iron gates met the world beyond. It's over, Alara whispered. Yes. He's really gone. Yes. She turned to face him. What happens now? Kalen pulled an envelope from his jacket, handed it to her. She opened it. Inside was a check. More money than she'd ever seen in her life. What is this? Back pay. For every hour you spent with me. Every prayer. Every word. He smiled, plus a little extra. For pain and suffering. Alara stared at the check. Then at him. I can't take this. Yes, you can. Kalen, you saved my life. You lost yours because of it. This is me returning the favor. Tears filled her eyes. I don't want your money. Then what do you want? She looked at him, really looked at him. This broken billionaire who'd woken up and refused to let her disappear. This man who'd burned his own family to protect her. I want to know if you meant it, she said. At the press conference. When you said you loved me. Kalen stepped closer. Every word. Why? Because when I was drowning, you were the only air I could breathe. His hand cupped her face. And now that I'm awake, I don't want to breathe anything else. She kissed him. Soft. Tentative. Like she was afraid he'd disappear. He kissed her back. Harder. Like he'd never let her go. When they pulled apart, she was crying. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to be loved. Then we'll learn together. She laughed. Shaky. Hopeful. And for the first time in 8 years, Alara Quinn looked at her future and didn't see darkness. She saw light. She saw possibility. She saw a man who'd fought the world to keep her. And maybe, just maybe, she saw home. If this story moved you, drop a comment sharing a time someone fought for you when the world gave up. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories that prove love conquers all. Share this to inspire someone who needs hope today. 6 months later, the Drayton Foundation opened its doors. A medical nonprofit. Free health care for underserved communities. Mental health services. Crisis intervention. Everything Alara had dreamed of when she first became a nurse. She stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony wearing a simple dress. No muck-up. Hair pulled back. Looking exactly like the girl who'd once walked to work and worn sneakers. But she wasn't that girl anymore. She was the woman who'd survived hell and decided to build heaven for others. Kalen stood beside her. Thinner than before, but stronger. His recovery had been slow. Physical therapy. Medication adjustments. Long nights when his body reminded him how close he'd come to death. But he'd made it. They both had. The crowd applauded as Alara cut the ribbon. Reporters captured the moment. But she barely noticed, because standing in the front row, wearing his best Sunday clothes, was her little brother. Jamar, 21 now, college graduate, social worker, the boy she'd almost left behind when she'd swallowed those pills. The reason she'd learned to live again. After the ceremony, they found each other in the crowd. Hugged tight. Mom would be proud, Jamar said. Alara's eyes filled. You think so? I know so. He pulled back. Grinned. Also, your boyfriend's pretty cool. For a rich dude. She laughed. He's not my boyfriend. Oh really? Jamar raised an eyebrow. Then what's that on your finger? Alara looked down. A ring. Simple. Gold. A small diamond that caught the light. She hadn't even noticed Kalen slip it on. She spun around. Found him standing by the fountain. Watching her. Smiling. She walked over. Held up her hand. When did you? This morning. While you were getting ready. He took her hand. I was going to wait. Do something romantic. But then I realized I'd already almost died waiting for things. So I figured, why wait anymore? Alara stared at the ring. At him. At the life she'd never thought she deserved. You're supposed to ask first, she said. I know. Kalen dropped to one knee. Right there. In front of everyone. Alara Quinn. Will you marry me? The crowd gasped. Cameras flashed. But all Alara could see was him. This man who'd woken up in darkness and chosen her as his light. This man who'd fought his own blood to protect her. This man who'd taken her broken pieces and called them beautiful. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, yes. He stood, kissed her, spun her around while the crowd cheered. And somewhere far away, in a courtroom, Mason Drayton signed his plea deal. 11 counts of embezzlement, 5 years probation, restitution payments that would leave him broke for life. He tried to build an empire by tearing others down. Instead, he'd built his own prison. But Kaylin and Alara, they'd built something better. A foundation that would save lives. A love that refused to die. A future that proved kindness always wins. Because sometimes the greatest miracles don't happen in hospitals. They happen in hearts brave enough to stay when everyone else leaves. In voices that speak to silence and refuse to stop hoping. In people who've walked through darkness and decided to become light for others. That night, after the cameras left and the guests went home, Kaylin and Alara sat on the guest house porch. No longer strangers. No longer broken. Just two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and decided to rebuild together. Do you ever think about it? Alara asked, what would have happened if I hadn't been assigned to your room? Every day, Kaylin pulled her closer. And every day, I thank God you were. She rested her head on his shoulder. I never believed in fate before, but I do now. Why? Because out of all the nurses in that hospital, all the rooms you could have been in, all the nights I could have worked, somehow we found each other. She looked up at him. That's not coincidence. That's destiny. Kaylin kissed her forehead. Then I guess destiny has good taste. She laughed, closed her eyes, and for the first time in her life, Alara Quinn felt completely, perfectly at peace. Because she'd learned the truth that changes everything. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to be willing to let someone see your scars and call them beautiful anyway. Money wakes up men's bodies. But kindness? Kindness wakes up their souls. And once awakened, nothing can put them back to sleep. Not wealth, not power, not even death itself. Because some connections transcend logic. Some voices echo forever. And some people are meant to save each other, even if the whole world says it's impossible. This is the end of Kaylin and Alara's story. But yours is just beginning. If this moved you, comment what you learned about love, forgiveness, or second chances. Share this with someone who needs to know their past doesn't define their future. And subscribe, because every week we bring you stories that prove miracles happen when you refuse to give up on people. Turn on notifications. Your next inspiration is coming soon. And your thoughts in the comments? They inspire others more than you know. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing. Now go change someone's world the way Kaylin and Alara changed each other's.